Today on East West Hurricane, I'd love to welcome an amazing guest, Yang Lu. Yang is from Kunming in China, has been living in the UK for many years now. She had a very impressive career in startups, technology, innovation, and that career began when she was working at 500 Startups, one of the world's most impressive startup incubators accelerators. But now she's the founder and CEO of the company JustWears. JustWears is a men's underwear brand that is direct to consumer, one of the hottest products out there right now. Actually, you should probably know that JustWears is the underwear that your balls deserve, also known as a palace for your phallus. So welcome today, Yang. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I am doing really good.
Did I mention that correctly? Did I describe your life well? Is there anything missing there? Was that all good?
Very good. Yeah. Don't worry, I'm easy. Like you're doing excellent job here.
Oh, thank you, thank you. I'd love to know how's everything going with JustWears right now. Like, I mean, in the middle of the coronavirus, how's everything going with your business? Everything okay? Like, how's the business been recently?
Yeah, wow. I can't believe well, it has been almost 10 months since lockdown happened.
Yeah.
It's like it's a long time. It feels a long time, but I also feel like it just like flipped like this. In the beginning when lockdown just happened, we definitely see like people got panic and not sure like what to do. So we did see like a sales dropped like probably like 50%
Oh,
overnight.
wow.
So that was pretty scary. And also with the unpredictable, unforeseen like future, we had a bit time, probably a week or 2 weeks to wonder, oh my God, how this actually would impact our business and how are we gonna die or are we gonna survive?
Wow.
This is like a question we wonder. But quite fortunately, we are in a category that everybody needs, especially after lockdown. People just want to look for something comfortable to wear at home, especially famously knowing people who wear like business shirt on the top but only pants
Yeah.
down, like no
Yeah.
trousers, just underwear. So we were very fortunate to see almost like over 500% increase
Wow.
in the first month of lockdown in terms of sales, and then it just keep going strong and stronger and stronger. And by the time we are very happy that uh, we already like quadrupled of our sales since last year, which is
Quadrupled?
like absolutely
Wow.
plus like so pleased to be.
Wow. So, I mean, it sounds like, I mean, amidst all the crisis and challenge in the middle of lockdown and COVID, there's been a lot of opportunity, and it sounds like your company's done really well. And I guess is that also part of a broader e-commerce trend that's happening? I mean, from my understanding, like e-commerce in general has been trending in one of those industries that's benefited a lot from the coronavirus.
Yeah, also depends on category. I would expect certain category fresh food
Yeah.
delivery. Like I know some of the company here in London just completely overwhelmed with the whole growth. And I also know some category of e-commerce, maybe like footwear. Footwear are not doing that good because
Mm,
people don't go out as often as they used to be, and they buy less shoes. So yeah, it depends on and travel is a different category,
yeah.
right? People buy less suitcase compared before. But overall, very fortunate to be this position.
Yeah, well, that's a wonderful position to be in. And today, of course, as you know, like we're going to be talking a lot about Asia. And given your experience, you know, you've lived in China, lived in the UK. How do you keep in touch with what's happening in Asia right now, or do you? And maybe just China specifically. Are you up to date with trends that were relevant to your business in terms of e-commerce, or do you just keep in touch with what's happening in Asia?
Yeah, I do. I started my career in China, the whole tech world in 2011. That was like when the whole mobile internet was just started. Like people are talking about app developing app, the whole mobile internet was still very very new baby, and the whole angel investment is also very new baby. The VC were there at that time. There was not even like a drag log clause when you invest, when you get money
Oh,
from
okay.
VC. It was so interesting timing back to that time. It's like investor were fighting for deals, but investor doesn't really have a proper protection
Yeah.
about themselves. So you will hear company founders who got this like a 500 5 million like RMB, and then they disappeared. They
Really?
invested money to buy property or the, well, it was a quite like wild
Yeah.
when I first started my career in
Where were you
China.
where were you doing this? Were you doing this in like Beijing, Shanghai, like
I was in Shenzhen,
oh
yeah,
Shenzhen? Okay, nice.
yeah. And when I first moved here, I still kept quite good connection with the same back to China with friends who are still involved in the world. Up to now, like it's almost the 6th year of me living in London. I'm still staying on top of the news, but the connection wise, like it's hard to keep that relationship if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, has that played a role in any of the business you've done right now?
Um, yes and no. Yes, in a way, is when we first started, like I have to look for manufacturers,
Mhm.
supply chain, or they say my contact definitely helped me a lot. No, in a sense, is like we majorly focus on UK market now, so the contact back to China can help very little.
Okay.
But who knows? Maybe one day when we get into China, they will be helpful.
Yeah. And what do you think? I mean, given your experience, right? You've lived in both China, worked in China as well, and lived in the UK, obviously worked in the UK. Do you think there's certain things that people misunderstand the most when it comes to China specifically?
Oh, for sure. There are a lot,
Yeah.
right? Like simply the whole copycat, like made in China, copied in China. That whole concept is just like ridiculous. Of course, like every country when they just started out, like you have to learn from the
Yeah.
best. Like even that it's not even just like country wise, like for startups you can also
Yeah.
looking for ideas from other people to get inspiration. And there was a period of time China is famous for copy the ideas from Western world, but I think moving to the recent decade, we see a lot more original innovation like TikToks,
Yeah.
WeChat actually coming out straight out from China without borrowing other countries' idea. Even Facebook and Instagram is currently copying
Yeah.
what TikTok is doing. It's a successful playbook. It's not about the business model. It's we're copying, we're learning successful playbook. That is what I think we need to shift the whole idea from, oh, China is a, don't go to
Yeah.
China. If you go there, they're gonna steal your ideas. Um, we have to be more open minded. We as a startup founder have to think regardless country, regardless nationality, we have to think about how can I move faster enough so I'm always an industry leader rather than sitting in the mindset side of worrying if I
Mhm.
tell my idea to more people, they're gonna steal my idea. Don't be that insecure, I would say.
Well, how do you think that perspective from startup founders, because I mean, you've been involved in startups for a long time now, right? Do you think, in terms of like a global, international, open-minded mindset, do you see differences between the way startups view not even just like China, but the rest of the world now versus let's say 5 years ago? Like, what does the mind and openness of a startup founder, how has that changed from what you've seen?
You mean like global wise?
Yeah.
I think there are definitely certain trend is startup become the next cliche like trend thing, right?
Yeah.
Like people are more willing to give an idea a try without thinking too much about the social barrier.
Yeah.
What does that mean? People are less going are more willing to take the risk and instead of jumping into a comfortable job. I also see like a it's quite interesting because when I moved to UK in 2015, 5 years ago, uh, I was working on really hot, like smart IoT hardware, like startups. That was before smart
Yeah.
gadget is a thing in the UK. And just within that very short period of like a couple years of time, you see like a company like Xiaomi grow
Yeah.
into like a global big like consumer electronic company and went to IPO, but still UK is taking time to adapt, to learn, and still smart consumer gadget are not like massively applied to the market, even to people's day-to-day life. I think that is what UK is behind,
Yeah.
and what China is actually way ahead of that.
Well, that sounds like something that is a situation a lot of Western countries find themselves in, right? Now, what they consider China as a place full of copycats and behind, the Western countries are now falling behind. And where does this leave, let's say, the UK or Europe more broadly as time goes on? Let's say 5 years from now.
Oh, I don't know, it's I being like a being someone who like being an immigrant in in UK, especially from China, it's a mixed feeling to say.
Yeah,
On the one side, I really feel like the UK, there's great stuff coming out of the UK, uh, but they're slow. The process is slow. The scale is smaller, and just looking back, like in the last year, there's more than uh 12 company from China went to IPO, become like a unicorn
yeah,
company, and there's one in the
yeah,
UK, which is a Revolut.
yeah,
The scale just not comparable. And secondly, I also think the adaptability here is lower than the Asia market.
yeah,
Not even just mention China, the Asian market. Because what interesting is in developed world, in Europe at least, we went through a proper computer age, and then transfer into mobile age.
yeah,
So there's still like large number of population are still uh, get used to the whole computer age, like our parents' generation, the older generation. But in Asia is really interesting because computer age
yeah,
was not really well established there, and they jump into because of because internet, because of 4G, 3G development, they jump into mobile internet straight away.
yeah,
And sometimes I see in Asia, what happened in Asia is the change is top down.
yeah,
It's like the company, many innovative company bring this innovation to the market, and they force the users to adopt it so intuitively.
yeah.
But here is not in that case.
Yeah. Well, if you don't mind me asking, like considering your business and e-commerce is a global opportunity, like do you see the future of your business, or I guess do you see more business opportunity in a place like Asia versus the UK when you consider like all these factors?
In our sector, not really. I actually prefer to be here in our sector because um it gives me time to properly develop the product and the brand. Like brand takes time. It doesn't happen overnight just like that. And I need a certain time to build my defensibility,
Yeah.
to get the brand to be known, get the product to be known. But in Asia, everything about the speed.
Mhm.
I'm already stressful being a founder in UK. I
Yeah.
cannot imagine my life back if I started business
Yeah.
in Asia.
And are there companies you admire in Asia?
Oh yeah, a
Yeah.
lot. My like my dream or my idol has always been Jack Ma. I think this guy just like such inspiring
Yeah.
person
Yeah.
from business wise, also from like a personal value.
Yeah.
Just really impressive to see how his mission of building 100 years old uh, Alibaba, and the structure he laid out as a shareholder, the incentive, a structure he laid out to his company employee, just mind blowing. Yeah, and one single company made so many people's
Yeah.
life change fundamentally. That's a huge impact.
Is there a favorite thing about Jack Ma in particular, like a story or something he did that you were particularly fascinated by?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Jack Ma is this like a small Asian guy
Yeah.
who had who hired like 70% of his company are female, and
Really? I
out
didn't
of
know
the
that.
whole, yeah,
Wow. Okay.
like that is a public data he has been talking proudly, and he basically said, without women, there's no uh, Alibaba, there's no Taobao, and these women are not just about the management team, also about the consumer. He basically is such big leader, uh, or advocate for empower female from business perspective, and that's very very real in like top 500 Fortune
Yeah.
500 companies. The gender equality over there is probably something I really respect him
Yeah.
uh, as a global leader.
I actually had no idea that was the case. It's funny, like he's well known for a lot of things, but I didn't realize that one of his accomplishments had to do with that, like the gender balance in his company. I had no idea that that was the thing. It's amazing.
And it didn't happen because he has a quota to
Yeah.
hit for diversity and
Yeah.
inclusive. It just happened in that way that he embedded that value from day one when he built the business. That's what I really respect for.
Are there any other like companies? Because there's, I mean, you mentioned a lot about all the Chinese companies that are IPOing, how someone like Xiaomi has become so successful so quickly. Alibaba. Are there others that like you look up to? Because I think people are very familiar with the famous Western companies and founders, but who are some of the other ones that you look up to in China or maybe Asia broadly?
I look up to the founder of ByteDance. I actually
Yes.
personally know him when he
Really?
just started ByteDance. Yeah,
Wow.
it was like a interesting story there. And this guy just come across like the geekiest guy ever I
Wait,
ever
how did
know.
you meet him? Was this through like work or like do you just know him through a friend or?
Yeah, well, I met him when ByteDance was just under 2 years old.
Okay.
That they, I met him when we were both speaking at the conference.
Okay.
Like you imagine me, like fresh out of university, and given this opportunity to representing the startup I worked for at that time, to give a talk, a speech in front of like 4,000 people
Wow.
in a conference, and the next speaker is him. It was just really exciting moment. And at that time, you don't know TikTok or ByteDance will become such big a thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Uh, like we had a really good conversation and learned a lot about his like past experience and hear out what's the strategy about like Ginger Toutiao, the
Yeah.
news the news
Yeah. Yeah.
recommendation app they first launched. Um, and even just from there, it's 2 years like 2 years in ByteDance journey. You can hear how visionary he
Yeah.
is in
Yeah.
terms of the company and in terms of the business structure. He didn't start up like he already talking about
Yeah.
IPO when the company is under 2 years. A
Wow.
proper strategy over there.
What about him came across as special? Because I mean, the fact that you met him, that's like the equivalent of meeting Jack Ma like 20 years ago, right? I mean, assuming like no matter what happens with ByteDance, like Zhang Yiming, right? Like he's already done so
Yeah.
many things that it's already been one of the most impressive stories in technology over the last 5 years. Like when you met him, was there something about him that made you think this guy's special, or you just seem kind of random, or did you like what did you notice anything about him that seemed different?
He is very sharp,
Okay.
and he's actually introvert. Like he doesn't talk that much, but when he talk, his opinion is sharp, uh, like deep and right to the point. Uh, that is not like a like a lot of Silicon Valley
Yeah.
CEO like Elon Musk has this really loud personality. Uh, and they enjoy being on the spotlight. And Zhang Yiming is not like that.
Yeah.
Like in the time I get to know him, well, not saying I know him that well, but just in that interaction, he comes across as somebody who's generally smart
Yeah.
and quiet. Not quiet is like I call that wasted because
Yeah.
I always have like in China there's a saying is that the smartest people don't say any words. Uh,
That's a saying in China.
yeah,
Wow. I this
like
is
the smartest people play as a fool.
Wow, that is fascinating. That to me, that says a lot about culture because I mean, you know me, I went to high school in the U.S., college in the U.S., and
Yeah,
even though I'm not from America, even though I'm not from America, when I first started going to school there, I was kind of blown away by how loud everybody was in high school, and like how like
yeah.
outspoken and extroverted everybody was, and how that was to me, having gone to school previously in New Zealand and the Philippines and Russia and Japan, it was still so different to me. And I think about how cultural norms that are in the workplace, they come from when you're younger, right? The way Chinese high school
Mm.
students act, the way American high school students act, that leads a lot to how business people in those situations act as well. I mean, this is what you just said about the quietest person in the room is the smartest person in the room in China. Do you see that playing out from a business perspective? Like considering now we're all older, you've worked with people from across the world. Do you know? Have you any observations about that?
That's certainly something cultural difference,
Yeah,
I would say. Like, or in I come across with a lot like Chinese like leaders, tech leaders, share that kind of personality. And while here, everybody is kind of you have to talk about your company to
yeah,
get attention. You have to be loud enough to get the attention from VC, from media, to help the business. But uh, still, like a lot like Chinese like a tech founder I know, they prefer just like put their head down, get the work done, and then boom.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, doesn't that mean does that put them at a disadvantage? Where let's say you are a Chinese founder. Well, I guess I mean let me just like play out the scenario. If you're a Chinese founder, does that make it harder for you to succeed in like a Western market, whether it comes to business expansion or uh, getting investors because of the cultural difference there?
Well, I don't have that experience directly, but I bet so because
Yeah,
you taking like a TikTok as an
yeah,
example, right? They are probably uh the first company who do
yeah,
properly like international global expansion by integrating cultural locally. And you think about Huawei probably did something similar,
mhm,
but they still have to relying on bringing exporting Chinese talents to
yeah,
oversee. That's not about building cultural, but TikTok is actually building the local office, having the local culture in each office. And you still hear so many different opinion about like their famous 996
yeah,
workflow, right?
yeah, yeah,
It just I'm sure like the whole cultural and also the working attitude make it so different for
yeah,
people for company to do international expansion.
yeah. And let's see how this turns out because I mean I've written about this before how TikTok is one of the first but not the last Chinese company to in the consumer tech space like break into the West, and I think we'll start seeing a lot more of that as time goes on. Um, so I've got some questions here that are more about things that you're consuming, quick fire questions. I'm gonna ask you
Yeah.
three questions. The first one is, so what's something you've watched recently that you recommend to people? Like a TV show, maybe a film, TED Talk, it could be serious, it could be funny.
Oh, two documentary. One is General Magic.
Oh,
Second
yeah.
is Social Dilemma.
Okay. So explain why those are important.
Social Dilemma give us such reflective point about data protection and how we as a society should move forward and how lawmaker should be adapted to the fast ever growth space of internet, and that give us a lot like deep thinking about humanity and make us be more aware how are we being consumed by technology. Sometimes
Mm,
I feel like every person is in a Truman Show, right? And that is just such a real shock. And General Magic is it made me tear in a way that every founder should watch that
yeah.
movie. It's just so related to every entrepreneur journey to run a successful startups. It's about timing,
Hmm.
about people,
Hmm.
about place,
Yeah.
like where you started that idea. And General Magic is such
I call that like hero,
Yeah.
like heroistic like a way of like failing.
Yeah.
You must watch that movie documentary too. Like it's just
Yeah.
powerful, inspiring, and leaving us feel inspired
Yeah.
and just want to commit it to the journey you are on and push it through to the end.
Yeah, no, I've seen that and it was incredibly inspiring. I remember actually one of my friends who is a startup founder in San Francisco. He told me he was crying by the end of the film, and I understand. I felt similarly strong emotions from it. Um, when it comes to something that you've listened to recently, maybe you've listened to a good podcast or audiobook recently, or music. What are you listening to right now?
I am currently listening to the book, audiobook Venture Deal.
Okay, nice, nice.
Well, it's quite a famous book
Yeah,
if you are looking to fundraising, but more like a it's probably the go-to book to
yeah,
read when you are thinking about fundraising or if you want to get into VC. And for me, it's more like I read the book 3 times, and this
yeah,
is the fourth time I listened just to get myself familiar with like how to play this whole risk control
yeah.
game.
Yeah, that's an important book. I've read that too, and I remember how helpful it was. Now, the last about this line of questioning, what's the best thing you've read recently? Maybe a book, maybe it's an article, it's a tweet.
What's the best thing I read recently? Interesting. Um, this is a bit like a contradiction, right? Like the best thing I read recently is actually the speech given by uh Trump.
Really?
The
Which one?
most recent one. The one he is accusing uh the whole election was a fraud.
Yeah.
Like
Why did
I
you think that was great?
great like quote unquote like a great in a sense like that talk to me is like a comedy, stand-up comedy with the very identical like a
Yeah,
Trump style,
yeah,
and it gave me so much laugh, good
yeah,
laugh, like and the second point is like I don't know who wrote his speech. Like I think Trump's team, like I don't agree with their value at all, but Trump team has a really unique specialty in communication.
yeah,
They communicate it in a way that is not about Trump. It is about the benefit of you,
yeah,
you who is watching the video, who's watching the news, who's reading the information about him. Like not like they have this like such technical communication, almost like a I think they almost have a
yeah,
psychologist
for
on
sure.
their team. Just right, grab your attention right there, and you have to agree with him in terms of the way they're talking
Yeah,
about, because they're talking about higher
yeah,
level of value instead of tiny little focus on Trump as an individual. This is a unique strategy.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot to learn about communications and media from Trump. So that definitely agree that there's a lot to also things to admire, honestly, whether you agree with them or not. Like when it comes to his ability to communicate, he's done a lot of very impressive things. Um, the
Still manipulation,
True.
manipulation through communication, and that is a technique like uh, regardless of value,
Yeah,
like every company, every founder should
it's
learn to.
marketing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it, exactly.
it's like an aggressive form of marketing because I mean, marketing is trying to convince someone to buy your product or love your brand, and it's not that far away from getting someone to vote for someone or to believe in an issue. Now, I'm going to ask you, what is a piece of advice you'd give to people now, considering the potential turmoil and also the opportunity in the world right now?
If if I think about what industry to get into for like a future um entrepreneur, I would say there this is a golden opportunity to look into business idea that will impact the next 10, 20, 30
Mm-hmm.
years in terms of sustainability, like how we eat, what
Yeah,
we eat, uh how our lifestyle could be more green is
Yeah.
absolutely going to be the next focus, and how biotech could fundamentally changing the society, changing our life expectation. I think the world is going towards a direction that the resources getting limited, the global warming is completely impacting in every aspect of the world, and our lifestyle has to be shaped fundamentally in a very rapid speed in the next decade. This is where I feel it's not an advice, but it's definitely my insight of the future direction of technology development.
That's still a very profound statement, and I think people can learn a lot from that. Now, where should people find you? Is there anything else you'd like to share about stuff you're working on, company website, Twitter handle? How should people find you if they want to get in touch with you?
Well, our website is www.just-wares.com. You can check out our product, and if you want to reach out to me, I'm on Twitter, like LIUYANG57. So
Cool.
it's pretty easy. If you find my Twitter tagline is I love coriander. So if
Okay.
you hate coriander, please reach out to me. I'd love to have a debate. I'm
Thank
sure I
you.
can convince you to give it a try.
Thank you very much. And thank you for taking the time today, Yang.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.